What is up, everyone? Welcome to a new video. Today we are installing the Ironman 4x4 America suspension 2-inch lift kit. That's a lot of words. Anyway, so we're going to do the front first, then the rear. Just some specs. This is a 2-inch lift kit using no spacers. All you're doing is putting in the new coilover assembly, and then you're using some subframe drop kit to kind of just drop the subframe, since the Subarus are unibody, and we're going to get those 2 inches. So right now I'm running on 1 inch, as you guys have seen, and we're going to 2 inches now, but super excited to get this on. We got the spread here, we got the front ones, tools, whatever, but yeah, you could see how good it is. The one and only legend himself. Anyway, so not too worried about this one. Should take about 1 to 2 hours, but let's see. So here we go. Today, first step we're gonna do, unlock our lugs, then we're gonna undo the top hat, but here it is. So as you can see, I'm taking an actual breaker bar here, taking off those lugs, then I'm gonna transition to the actual Milwaukee, get even more loose. Then you're gonna go to the top hat, you're gonna loosen those. I recommend not using an extension so that you could actually get into the back bolts that are there. Then once you get those bolts loose, you want to actually lift up the car. So when lifting up the car, make sure to be safe. We use this wood just because our jack wasn't high enough, but don't recommend doing that if you don't have to. Then you just want to set this thing, make it that it's stuck in place, and you should be good to go. Then just drop it down. Cool, so now that we got the car lifted up, wheels are loose, top hat is loose, we go in and we actually take these off completely. Take this and set it under there for safety. Cool, so as you guys see, we got the wheel off finally. We're gonna walk you guys through real quick what we want to take off. So first we're gonna go ahead and take off these ABS lines. Next we'll take off the brake line. After that, it'll be our sway bar end link, the connections out here. So after you do those three, we're gonna go ahead and take off the actual camber and the other bolt here, and this whole brake assembly will drop down. We'll use the jack to keep it up. Then we'll undo the top hat, and then this whole thing will be out, and that'll be one done once we put the other one in. So right here what I'm doing is actually take on the ABS line. I recommend using a flathead to kind of just crimp it off. It takes a little bit. Then you're going to transition to the actual brake line. So the brake line uses an actual bolt. I believe it's a 12mm bolt. Once you get it off, it's quick. Break it, just undo it. What you want to do is give it some slack so that when the brake actually drops down, that doesn't have any strain on it. Then you'll finally get the bolt off, move that off as you can see. I recommend just putting the bolt back on where it goes. So as you guys can see, we got the brake line off already, the ABS line is off. Once we actually take these off, we'll use the jack to hold the brake up from the bottom, just so that we don't have so much tension on those lines. Next we're going to use one of these through ratchets. So the end joint, or sorry, I don't even know what it's called, what connects to the sway bar, the end link, sorry. The end link has an Allen that goes through the bolt, but then it has the nut, so you got to use this. We're going to try it right now. Maybe the nut will come off without it, but we'll see. But again, it's right here on this other side, so here we go. That came off. So this next step is actually really helpful. We're placing the jack under this whole assembly to compress the actual coilover. That's going to allow us to take off the end link. Once you take it off, just keep it in a neutral position, not overstressing it. Really helpful tip. The next step is to actually take off the camber adjustment bolt and the actual main bolt that holds the wheel on, if you will. So the top one isn't torqued down to a lot, but definitely recommend using a breaker bar on the bottom, just because we're in 100 foot-pounds of torque for this one. Once you get those off, loosen them, get some movement in the actual assembly, and it'll be super easy to get it off. So, as you guys can see, we already got these two off. The top one is the camber bolt, the bottom is just a regular one, but just use the 19 breaker bar, and they're off. That's easy. So now we're gonna hold this up, and then we'll take the strut out. So as you can see, we placed a bungee cord to hold the assembly while it's down. But to be safe, we jacked it up just to hold it in place. Super cool tip as well. Cool, so as you guys can see, we already took the bottom off. Now we're gonna work up here. So this cover here, you wanna save it for the Ironman kit. That's what's gonna stop this rust from coming in. So we're gonna do these two back ones first, and we'll just leave this one on. That was already off. And Ironman sends you the new nuts for these, so just put them on the strut when you're done. Cool, so now you can see some movement. So you just want to grab it from the bottom here, and then should be good to go. There we go. Oh, so we got some corrosion on here, it looks like. Alright. So I want you guys to be very careful when taking this strut out. As you can see, I got kind of caught on my ABS line, and I just want to make you conscious of the fact that you do not want to rip that. So just be safe when taking this strut out. Done. Cool, so we got the strut out of the front passenger. You can see the top here, but just want to show you guys the size difference. This is the OEM, this is Ironman. So with Ironman, you don't need the spacer. You can tell how big the strut is itself. So now we're just going to plug that in, and we're good to go. It's that easy. So now we're actually putting the front coilover in on the passenger side. My recommendation is to line it up, get the studs to pull through, and then get one of the nuts to just hold it in place. Then you want to line it up and actually tighten those down to a point where it doesn't move, if you will, but not torque down all the way. Now we're actually going to put those bolts in. We're going to push back our coilover and line up our rotor with where we need it to be. We place our bolts in and we're good to go. So now we're actually going to start torquing down. This here's the lower strut bolt, and the rating is 116 foot-pounds. When done, it should sound something like this. Next is the camber adjustment bolt at 40 foot-pounds. Don't worry too much because you'll get it aligned later. So next we're actually using that pro tip again and compressing the coilover. This will allow us to put in the sway bar end link super easy. As you can see, I position it, put it in, and then I actually get the nut and hand tighten it. The next step is to actually torque it down. The rating for the sway bar end link is 34 foot-pounds. And since you're already there, you might as well just go ahead and throw back in the ABS line. The final step on this side is to actually tighten up the brake line. Make sure to do this. We don't want to run with that thing loose. Cool, so as you guys see, we got the passenger strut on. We torqued these down already. We torqued the end link. We put back on the brake line, the ABS line. So now we can go ahead and drop this down, and it shouldn't move. Well, it should, because this is stretched out. And now we're good to go. So end link looks good, brake lines look good, ABS lines look good. Now we're going to torque the top, and this side will be done. Cool. This last step is to actually torque down the top hat nuts. Here I'm setting the torque wrench to 15 foot-pounds. You want to make sure and use a low profile socket so that you could get in there. 15 foot-pounds isn't a lot, but that is the setting. Once you get it in, you want to make sure to not forget this last step. Make sure to take that cover we took off at the beginning, put it back on so that no rust gets in your suspension. And before you drop the car, make sure to lock those nuts in to be safe. Cool, so we have the front strut in. We're going to do the other side. Then we'll go to the rear. But, I mean, you guys saw how quick that was. I mean, in reality, you take off, let's say, 3 bolts, and then the top hat stuff. You undo the ABS line, you undo the brake line. That's it. And it's super easy to plug and play. Now we just, after, of course, take it to an alignment. So we're going to go ahead and do the other front side. I won't show you guys that too much because you guys, it's the same thing, just mirrored on the other side. Then we'll do the back, and we'll be done. But you could already see, I'll show you guys some measurements at the end, but really excited with it. So just want to show you guys, here we have the 1 inch, the other side the 2 inches already on. It's crazy the difference, but so from tire to here we're looking at 5.5 inches of clearance. And then I want to show you guys ground clearance to the lowest spot, if you will. So we're looking at about what, 1 foot-ish, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, 1 foot. So as you guys saw before, we measured here. We're also going to measure the ground clearance, but this is the new measurement after putting the strut just in the front. We still got to do the back, but So before we were reading 5.5, now we're about 7 from the top of this, which is 1.5 inch increase. And then we're gonna read from ground clearance. Obviously the back's gonna go up more, but the front is so good. So we're reading about a foot before, now we're at 14 inches. So about 1.5 inches on both, just from that. Once we put the back on, we'll have some more, but you can tell the difference between the front at 2 inches and the back at 1 inch. So looking good already. Now let's go to the back. So the first thing you want to do before you lift the car up is actually loosen the top hat nuts from the back. Super easy step. Now we can lift the car. So there's actually a spot behind the differential where you could place your jack and lift the car up perfectly. What you want to do is actually put in your stationary jacks so that the car is safe when you're under it. Again, be careful with that wood. Once that car is safe, take off the wheel and tire so you can start working. Once you're ready to go, take off the ABS lines. I used a flathead to just take these guys off. Super easy to do. So the next step is to actually bring up the subframe. This will allow us to create space and put in our spacers that we need to drop the subframe. Really cool trick. So we're down here right now. So to take off the back, you're going to take off this bolt. Of course follow the instructions, but I'm just going off that. So take off this bolt. Next will be this guy, and the same thing on the other side, of course. And then there's these two, and I'll show you what spacer goes there after. But you guys saw how we lifted up the subframe and how I talked about that. But yeah, that's the one you want to take off, as well as this one and those two down there. Now here we're loosening the support bolts of the subframe. Next, you'll go to the main bolts, get those loose, and you're ready to go. So this step is why we brought up the subframe. As you can see, we're dropping it now, which is making space to put in our spacers. Without that, it'd be super hard to do. So as you guys see, this is the view from the passenger side of the rear. We have already dropped the subframe. I'll show you guys a little snippet of that. But I just want to show you guys what this should look like. So this guy now has space to put in a spacer. So pretty much what's going to happen is we're going to take off that bolt, and this spacer is going to go right in there. Good to go. And we're going to do the same thing with that one. And then there's going to be 2 more little ones that are going to go up here. And those 2 little ones are these guys. And I'll show you those right now. But anyway, just wanted to show you how that spaced out should look. So now that we got that space, we could take out that bolt and start putting in our spacer. Once you put that spacer in, we're going to torque it down. So now we're actually tightening down the main bolt for the subframe. The rating for that is 107 foot-pounds. There's 4 of these, so make sure to do all 4. When you torque it, it should sound something like this. So there's 2 main bolts on each side, passenger and driver. This is the second one on the passenger side. Again, 107 foot-pounds. Make sure that you torque this down, it's super important. So the next 2 are subframe support bolts. These 2 should be torqued down to 52 foot-pounds, and they should sound something like this when done. Cool, so I just want to show you guys, we have the spacers in, ready to go. There's one here, and we got the other one up here. So those 2 are in, and then we got this guy right there, as you guys can see. So anyway, we're pretty much going to move on to the other side now. But I just wanted to show you 1, 2, 3 spacers. I do want to give you guys a note though. My sway bar broke, so your sway bar spacers would go right here. I don't have to do that because again I don't have a sway bar, so we will skip that step. So we're gonna go do the other side. We're gonna do those 3 spacers, 1, 2, 3. We'll do the other side, same thing, and then we'll do the coilovers. So I want to show you guys how we're gonna take off the coilovers. So we already undid them in the cargo area up top. So now, since we already finished all the spacers, what we're able to do is loosen that bolt there, as you see, this one. So this whole arm will drop down to the floor, and then we could undo this bolt. Obviously, we're gonna loosen them right now, and then we'll undo this bolt, undo the top, and we'll be able to take this whole coilover out, put in the new one, put it back up, tighten it, and we'll be done with that side. So yeah, I just want to walk you guys through before I do it, but here it is, check it out. So we're taking our breaker bar and we're just going to loosen these so that when we take them off, it'll be easier. But here we go.
So this next step actually makes things really easy. You want to take off these next 2 bolts so that you have an easier way of taking out the coilover. What this will allow you to do is take off the trailing arm from one end rather than having to take off the whole brake assembly to get the coilover out. Actually really easy to do it, and I really recommend it.
Alright, perfect. So now we'll undo the top, we'll undo this one, and we'll be good to go. So now we got the top loose, we got these are all loose, so I'm going to use the screwdriver to pry this out. So this goes under, not through that hole. And then we just almost there. Now it's out. Woo! So I just want to show you guys the size comparison. This is the OEM strut, and this is the Ironman strut. We're talking, I mean, you could see from there to there, there to there, that difference is crazy. And then the height, of course, this is where you get your 2 inches. You don't need to put a subframe, top hat space or anything. It's that easy. So this is the Ironman ATS kit, that much bigger, that easy. So now, as you guys can see, we got it in, we bolted it up on top, we put on the bolt that goes to the subframe and the bolt that goes to the knuckle. So these are all good. We just got to torque them down to 89.
So now we're torquing down the first trailing arm bolt. This one's going to be torqued down to 67 foot-pounds. This next one is the actual one that goes to the knuckle. That one's going to be torqued down to 89 foot-pounds. So this next step is actually really important in my opinion. You want to use this brake line extender to extend that travel of the brake line so that when you're running bigger wheels and tires, you don't have to worry about your brakes going out.
So as you guys can see, we have got everything in. We put the brake line extender on. We got the coilover, we got the spacer there, another one back there. The new coilover itself. But anyway, so far so good. Just want to show you guys over here what this is looking like. Same thing on the other side, we got all that in already. Spacers, etc. and the coilover. But yeah.
So once you got everything torqued down, make sure you torque everything down. Drop the car. So I'm really happy with how the car sits after the lift. It's a 2-inch lift. The car's on 235s with 15-inch rims. I'm super satisfied with it. I'm going to leave you guys here with the torque values. Really good tool to use. I thank you guys for watching, and here are my closing remarks. Have a great day, everyone.
Cool, so as you guys saw, we have everything in. I'm going to show you guys the end result after. But we put all the coilovers in, spacers in. I think the biggest learning curve was like knowing the little adjustments, and I really hope that I executed it on showing you guys in that video. And that's why it took the longest, I think, was that we were trying to get all the info we needed in the video while learning to do the install, but instructions were straightforward, so really happy with it. But I'll show you guys the end product. It's crazy how high it looks. Don't know if it picks it up, but here it is.